The apartment door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing Princess Valika of the Andorian Empire, standing in the doorway with 3 suitcases hovering behind her on anti-gravity platforms. Her skin shimmered with the characteristic violet hue of her species, and her 4 amber eyes blinked in sequence as she surveyed the modest human dwelling. James looked up from his datapad, nearly dropping it in shock. The university housing coordinator had mentioned an off-world exchange student, but he had not expected royalty. "You must be my new roommate," Valika said, her translator implant rendering her melodic language into perfect English. "I am told humans share living spaces to reduce costs. This is a concept foreign to Andorian nobility, but I'm here to learn your ways." James stood awkwardly, trying to remember the proper Andorian greeting he had learned in his xenocultural studies class. He settled for a simple wave. "Yeah, welcome. I'm James. Your room is the one on the left." The princess glided into the apartment, her flowing robes trailing behind her like liquid silver. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with an elegance that made the cramped space seem suddenly inadequate. Her species had only made first contact with humanity 5 years ago, and relations remained formal, diplomatic, carefully measured. Over the following weeks, James discovered that Valika was nothing like the rigid diplomats he had seen on news broadcasts. She was curious about everything, from the way his coffee maker worked to why humans insisted on wearing shoes indoors. She attended the same xenobiology program at the university, though her focus was on comparative reproduction across species. "Human mating rituals are fascinating," she announced one evening while they shared takeout noodles. "Your species bonds through emotional connection rather than biological necessity. Andorians mate once every 7 years, driven purely by hormonal cycles. But humans? You can choose. You can want someone simply because they make you laugh." James nearly choked on his noodles. "I guess we never really think about it that way." "I have been reading your literature," Valika continued, her eyes gleaming with academic interest. "Romance novels, as you call them. The concept of desire existing outside of procreation is revolutionary. On Andor, such feelings are considered a medical condition." As months passed, their friendship deepened. James taught Valika about human music, introducing her to jazz and rock and roll. She taught him the philosophical frameworks of Andorian thought, concepts so complex they made his brain hurt. They studied together, argued about intergalactic politics, and fell into an easy rhythm of coexistence. But something was changing in Valika. James noticed it in the way she lingered when they accidentally brushed hands, how she asked increasingly specific questions about human relationships and physical intimacy. "Is it true," she asked one night while they watched a movie together, "that humans can experience attraction outside of their reproductive cycle? That you feel this constantly?" James felt heat rise to his cheeks. "Well, yeah. I mean, it varies by person, but generally, yes." Valika was silent for a long moment, her 4 eyes fixed on the screen. "That must be overwhelming. You get used to it." "I am not certain I would want to get used to it," she said quietly. "For my people, desire is simple. It comes, it is satisfied, it leaves. But for humans, it is always there, like background radiation." "How do you function?" James laughed. "Honestly, most of the time we don't think about it. It's just part of life." The princess turned to look at him fully, all 4 eyes focused with an intensity that made him squirm. "I believe I am beginning to understand. These past months living with you, observing human behavior so closely, something has shifted in my biology. My physicians would call it contamination, exposure to your pheromones and social patterns. But I think it is more than that." "What do you mean?" Valika stood, pacing to the window that overlooked the city lights. "Andorians and humans are not so different biologically as we pretend. Our species can interbreed, though it is considered taboo by both our governments. The compatibility exists because eons ago, we shared common ancestors before the Great Diaspora. But we evolved differently. My people chose order, cycles, predictability. Yours chose chaos and constant yearning. She turned back to him, and James saw something in her expression he had never seen before: vulnerability. I think I am experiencing what humans call attraction, Velika said. Not because of hormones or cycles, but because I have come to value you. Your kindness, your humor, the way you explain things with such patience. My body is responding to emotional connection, and my physicians have no treatment for this, because it is not an illness. It is human. James stood slowly, his heart hammering. Velika, I don't know what to say. You do not have to say anything, she replied. I merely wanted you to know. I am supposed to return to Ando in 3 months when my exchange program ends. I will undergo the standard decontamination procedures, and these feelings will be suppressed. But I wanted to experience them fully before that happens, to understand what humans live with every day. The next weeks were strange and charged. They continued their routines, but everything felt different, weighted with unspoken possibility. James caught himself watching her more often, noticing the graceful way she moved, the musical quality of her laugh when she found something genuinely funny. One night, while studying for their final exams, Velika set down her datapad and looked at him seriously. I have been researching human procreation extensively, she said. The mechanics, yes, but also the emotional component. The intimacy you share goes beyond mere biological function. It is communication, connection, vulnerability. That's one way to put it, James said, trying to keep his voice steady. I want to experience it, Velika said simply. Before I leave, before my government strips this humanity from me, I want to understand this fundamental part of your species. With you, if you are willing. James felt as though the air had been sucked from the room. Velika, that's a huge decision. There could be consequences. Diplomatic incidents. Your family. My family has arranged my entire life, she interrupted, her voice firm. Every cycle, every duty, every moment choreographed before my birth. This one thing, this one choice, I want it to be mine. I am not asking for marriage or commitment or anything beyond this moment. I am asking to feel what humans feel, to choose desire instead of having it chosen for me. She moved closer, taking his hand. Her skin was cooler than his, smooth and slightly luminescent in the dim light. I trust you, she said softly. That is not something I can say to many people in this universe. James looked into her 4 eyes and saw genuine emotion there, something beyond curiosity or academic interest. He saw someone who had lived her entire life in a gilded cage, who had crossed stars to find something real. Okay, he whispered. But we take this slow, and we stop if either of us feels uncertain. What followed was tentative and awkward and beautiful in ways that transcended species. They learned each other carefully, mapping differences and discovering surprising similarities. Velika's physiology was compatible but unique, and they navigated the newness together, with patience and humor and growing wonder. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness of his room, her head resting on his chest as he traced patterns on her shoulder. Now I understand, Velika murmured. Why humans write poetry about this, create art, build entire civilizations around the concept of connection. It is not just physical. It is affirmation that you exist, that you matter to someone else. Yeah, James agreed. That's exactly it. When I return to Andor, they will remove this from my memory, she said quietly. The emotional components, the feelings, they will leave the academic knowledge, but strip the experience itself. It is considered contamination, a corruption of our natural state. James felt his chest tighten. You could stay. I cannot. I am seventh in line for the throne. My duty to my people supersedes my personal desires, no matter how human those desires might be. She lifted her head to look at him. But I will know, in some deep part of myself that they cannot touch, that I made this choice. That for one moment, I was not a princess or a diplomat or a biological function. I was just Velika, choosing to connect with someone who saw me as more than my title. 3 months later, James stood at the spaceport, watching as Velika prepared to board the transport that would take her back to Endor. She wore formal robes now, her posture regal and composed, every inch the princess she had been born to be. But when she looked at him one last time, he saw the truth in her eyes. Some part of her would carry this forward, buried deep beneath layers of propriety and duty and Andorian order. She had learned what it meant to be human, and no decontamination procedure in the galaxy could completely erase that. As her ship disappeared into the stars, James touched his chest where she had rested her head and smiled. Somewhere up there, a princess remembered what it felt like to choose love over duty, even if only for a moment. And maybe that was enough.